Hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Road Less Traveled with Gary L. and Gigi's Boo. And Gigi's Boo is tangled up at the moment, and hopefully she'll be able to join us shortly. But we'll see. We've got to go for it here unless she joins us, and we'll see how that goes. Hope everyone's well out there. It's another Sunday night. It's 7/23/2017, the 23rd of July at 7:01 p.m. And we're over here at Real Liberty Media and on RLM Radio. And we hope you're listening in live. If not, hopefully you're catching it on the archive. And hopefully the sound is running okay. It looks like all the indicators here look like things are going well. And have had an animated chat room over at reallibertymedia.com, so you might want to join into the conversation. There's some very, very intelligent and also opinionated people over here. You'll get a wide variety of views. Not for the faint of heart, as we were discussing previously. No, I didn't tie her up. She's tied up by partly tech diffs and partly some other things that are going on. But at any rate, there's been a lively chat going on here at the chat room. So if you want to join in, like I said, not for the faint of heart. Bring your brain, as Hal Anthony says on his show, Behind the Woodshed, 3 to 5 here just prior to ours. Bring your own brain. It'll be helpful. If not, you may feel a bit disrobed. We'll put it that way. But you can join the chat room over on the reallibertymedia.com homepage. About halfway down on the front, there's a little chat applet, a gateway into the hell of Real Liberty Media. No, really. No, it's a great place and great people. They've been here for a long time. They're extremely open-minded, and unfortunately, many people find it threatening. Now, that was part of the conversation that was going on here previously, was the fact that, for whatever reason, people are just willing to sit idly by, sit quietly by, while they're effectively being removed or erased from the slate. And for those who don't believe that's going on, well, you definitely need to visit my real estate page where I'm selling bridges across the Grand Canyon. I got a super deal for you. So if you don't believe that you're systematically being erased and that the history, actually, the historical record doesn't support that, then you are living in some kind of la-la land that I can't get with. So, and a lot of people in this chat room are unable to get with that either. So that's something to bear in mind as we go along here. Anyway, I've seen no negative reports in the chat room about the sound quality, so hopefully it's good. And, yeah, I don't know. It gets a little frustrating at times, actually, when, let's just take this a little further. It does, in fact, get a little frustrating at times when you're dealing with people who are so tied up in what many call the statist mindset, where it's got to be some political solution. It has to be my political fellow, or it has to be someone else's political fellow, and they're nasty, evil, and ugly, and they deal with Russians and Koreans and Muslims. Oh my God! Yeah. People actually soak this shit up and incorporate it into their daily lives and use it, apply it as filters to the already biased information that they're being presented. Wow, isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful that people are so easily manipulated that way? And they have been for all of recorded time. If you really, really dig into it. All of recorded time, there have been those who have been expertly manipulating their followers, if you will, into going out, destroying, thanks Rob, destroying their adversaries, followers. Oh my God. And, people wrap that up as such things as building of empire, expanding due to the necessary resources, all that. I mean, all these rationalizations are tied up in all this. But I think when you really, really dig to the heart, it's all about keeping numbers at manageable levels. Think about that. Put yourself on the other side. Let's say, for example, you are among the lofty elite who sit at the 1/10 of 1%, if not smaller, group, who controls the vast majority of all the resources, of all the wealth, and all these amazing programs have been put into place over so many years, to give you the tools in order to do that very same thing. Federal Reserve, right? I mean, before that, who figured out a way to profit from the gold holdings of the common people? Why, of course, the common people can't keep that gold in their home. Someone might break in and steal it. Fear, fear, fear. So bring it to me, and I'll lock it up in my storehouse, my secure storehouse, you see. But what I'm not telling you is I'm going to use your gold and loan out 10 times that amount of credit against that same gold, in the hopes, and then actually the knowledge, that nobody is going to come in and ask for their gold all at once. So I can monopolize your gold, and I can make profit off of it and give you next to nothing. What a neat idea. But then, man, this is crazy. Forget about the gold, because that's kind of restrictive, because there's only so much gold around, right? And silver. Let's not forget silver. There's only so much of that around above ground. So we have to come up with something else to leverage our ability to gather all the real assets of the world. So how do we do that? Man, we're going to come up with something we call money, but it's not tied to anything. It's not restricted by anything, so it can grow as big as we want it to be. And we can take that money, we can convince you that it has value. And we're going to give it to you in exchange for your real assets. Now, what can go wrong with that? Right? See, if you just start there, and the old saying goes, follow the money, and you'll probably arrive at the proper answer. Just start right there. And then start looking around at the world events. And you'll have your answer, won't you? And it gets even better, and it gets even deeper, and uglier, and darker. And that's probably why a lot of people just turn off. These rabbit holes are not only deep, as the deeper you go, the higher the temperature goes. And a lot of folks aren't prepared to deal with that, and they'd rather not. So they'd rather just accept the toys and all the little benefits and just go along with that and occasionally complain and moan and groan. Oh my God, this is so terrible for all these poor people. Yeah, right. But at the end of the day, they just sit back and turn on the TV and forget it all. Okay, that's enough of that mess. Then we went 10 minutes with that craziness, right? You know, you sit here and you talk about all this stuff, and you wonder, who's listening? Hello, is anybody out there? And Hal says, crickets. Crickets and crickets. Okay, well, let's see what we got going on. on in the world? There's so many things. And, sometimes I think they just they've gotten so brazen, they just throw this stuff out here and knowing that we're not going to do anything. We're going to sit here and beat our gums. A few of us are. The rest of us are going to just cower down and, oh my God, they might come and get me if I talk too loudly. They might toss you into the lion's den. And all the people that we just referenced earlier are sitting in the stands. They're cheering as you're dismembered. That's the state of the world, and has been for a very long time. And we think we're so modern. We think we're so advanced. When you really look at history, we have come no further than technologically we're just able to build bigger and better mousetraps and bigger and better ways of killing one another for the sake of those who sit behind their paneled desks in their ivory towers and profit from it all. Wonderful, isn't it? But what about the government, man? Let's look at what's going on. Oregon, now hell's probably on top of this. Oregon, from the Pacific Northwest News, Oregonian article, July 7th. Get this. Oregon just passed the only bicycle-specific tax in the country. And you thought the whole time that bicycle was a personal property. No, now they're taxing it as a conveyance. So in effect, what they've just done is they put a bicycle into commerce where it never has been before. Think about it. Look at all your local highway rules and how they apply to bicycles. Or do not apply to bicycles, probably most appropriately. Yeah, no requirement for registration, no requirement for insurance, none of that. But they creep it, you see. Well, then they say, well, you have to wear a helmet. Okay, and what's the authority for that? Well, we hide it under the safeties. Oh, the safety. Who's going to protect the children? That's how that's achieved. And the next thing you know, we have an ambitious $5.3 billion transportation tax and fee package that includes a tax on the sale of bicycles. Now, we're just arbitrarily creating a condition, a unique condition, over one thing that doesn't apply to other things necessarily. Something sounds wrong with that, doesn't it? Unless the opponents of this challenge the bill at the ballot or in court, starting January 1st, 2018, new bicycles with a wheel diameter of 26 inches or more and a retail price of $200 or more will be taxed a flat rate of $15. Talk about the camel's nose under the tent. The tax will be collected by retailers at the time of the sale. It should be noted that most states do tax the sale of bikes because they have a sales tax, which Oregon does not. Okay, well that sounds pretty cool. However, if they're just taxing bikes, then they're not taxing. That's not a sales tax. That's an arbitrary tax. Arbitrary and capricious, actually, as the words go. And, of course, they try to justify it by saying that the bike tax will go directly to projects that expand and improve commuter routes for check these phrases out, non-motorized vehicles and pedestrians. Oh, wait a minute. Did you realize that a bicycle was now being grouped into the class of commercial items known as vehicles, albeit non-motorized? See how slick they are with this crap? And, of course, a lot of people are kicking a fuss. Then they'll kick a fuss, just like we talked about earlier. Go ahead, kick your fuss. Sit back at the end of the day. Turn on your TV. Sit back, drink your beer. And just moan about, the world. And there's nothing I can do. And, of course, you have those out there saying, well, there's one way around it. Buy bikes with smaller wheels. Okay, that's fine until they amend the law to exclude the wheel diameter, the wheel diameter aspect of it. But then you're going to sit back and whine and moan and groan because you've already let the camel into the tent. Hello, Oregon. How you doing? Oh, but then Google got slapped with a big tuna. Slapped it in the face with a big tuna fish. With a $2.7 billion fine for rigging search results with monopolistic algorithms. Ooh, that's a mouthful, isn't it? And it's in Natural News. July 14th. Oh, but guess what? This happened in Europe. Don't worry about America. We don't worry about such minor details. But in Europe, apparently they do. For 7 years, the European... stand by, I'm reading a comment. No motor doesn't. Yeah, well, the fact of the matter is, when you start getting into vehicle, that's the key word. Vehicle is defined as a commercial item. Okay. Now, whether or not it has a motor is in fact immaterial, but what is material is the fact that now suddenly something that has not been lawfully considered a vehicle is now a vehicle. It's now been grouped into the commercial clause, which gives the government the authority, they think, the authorita, to apply such taxes and levies. So anyway, that's actually a good point. Thank you very much. All right, let's click that out. All right, 7 years. For 7 years, the European regulators have been investigating Google's business practices and the company's overreaching dominance in searches and smartphones. This report coming from The Guardian. Unlike the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, who opted not to pursue any similar charges in 2013, EU regulators found that Google artificially and illegally pushes its own price comparison service in searches. And as a result, they gave them a $2.7 billion fine. The ruling also includes demands that Google stop these activities within 3 months. You have 90 days to stop, as well as to give an explanation as how it will reform its ways. If they don't, they could face fines up to €10.6 million a day. Somehow that sounds like the ka-ching. The ka-ching is the payment of tithes to the government, you see. As long you can do what you want to do, but you'll have to pay us. Protection racket, huh? Key wordage from your form of transportation is beyond yours. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and going back to the bicycles again, Sock Puppet points out it is. You have a right to travel. Let's just cut it down to the basic things. You have a right to travel, and there's actually a court case that indicates that whatever the mode of travel of the day is included in those things that are not subject to regulation. I'll put it that way. But anyway, yeah, that's another good catch. Point being, though, that freaking bicycles are bicycles. You're effectively walking over top of two wheels. Really? Aren't you really? Think about it. You're walking over top of two wheels. So remove the wheels and you're in your shoes and the shoes are on the ground. What are we going to do? Start taxing those too? Think about it. Anyway, the article goes on here about the Google business. And of course, Google disagrees, and of course, we're considering whether to appeal. And give me a freaking break. Oh well, you guys can enjoy these links and these stories on the Blogcaster when it comes up, and also in the website that I keep talking about. People out there listening live, you need to jump over to the website. Join the chat room. Don't be afraid. Nobody here bites too hard. Oh no, what's happening? Gasoline demand has collapsed. What? What's wrong with the gasoline demand? Bank of America is stunned by the drop in gasoline demand. And they're asking, where is the driving season? With an article by Tyler Durden on July 8th in Zero Hedge. He talks about 6 months ago when oil bulls still held on to some fleeting hope that OPEC might somehow stabilize the crash in oil prices despite the shift in marginal oil production from low-cost OPEC producers to U.S. shale. Now remember, stopping right there, the big hoorah about the independent shale operators and the fact that the bottom fell out of the oil market, which just coincidentally put a lot of those independent businesses out of business. You think that was an accident? You think that was a product of supply and demand? Well, you're thinking up the wrong alley. Goldman noticed something troubling, an unprecedented collapse in gasoline demand. As the analyst Damian Corvalin said on February 8th when discussing the 6% fall in U.S. gasoline demand, such a plunge would require a U.S. recession. Well, hello, operator. You think we are in a recession? Do you think we haven't been in one? Have you been listening to the freaking lion spinning heads on the mainstream media who tells you that everything has gotten better? Wow, people. But now they say, 6 months later, the situation is very much different, with the U.S. now inside peak summer driving season. The cyclical drivers behind gasoline supply and demand are vastly different, and yet something has remained the same. Gasoline demand in the U.S. simply refuses to rebound. Surprising. Analysts, parenthetically, experts say, surprising analysts by how weak it is. So weak that Bank of America has released a note which, like Goldman half a year ago, reveals confusion about why, if the economy is indeed strong, why his demand hasn't kept up and hasn't prompted Bank of America's energy analyst, Francisco Blanch, to say, where's the driving season? All these little indicators out there, as if you didn't need to see them, most of us didn't anyway, that things are not going well at all. Not at all. Nobody's rich these days. The only people making money are if you're involved in a high-level government operation, some sort of Ponzi scheme associated therewith, or you're just a freaking banker. But right on the heels of that story, Americans are cutting back on spending. What? These two things do kind of go together, right? And I'm getting back to the gasoline in just a second. Look at the price at the pump. If the demand is so low, then riddle me this, Batman. If we are in a complete supply and demand scenario, why in the hell are the gasoline prices still right at $2, $80, $90, $2 a gallon? Why? Why is that? Americans are cutting back on spending. January's optimism is failing. Oh my God. We'll have to extend the Christmas buying season from December 26th to December 25th to convince the shareholders that they're actually making money. No, I just made that up. American consumers account for the majority of economic growth. I don't know if I believe that statement, but we'll go with it. And they're cutting back on their spending. Retail sales dropped in June for the second straight month, according to the Commerce Department data. Sales dropped 0.2% compared to May. It's the third decline this year. It was disappointing and does seem to be a broad-based decline, said a U.S. economist at Capital Economics, a research firm. We've got a weak base going into the second half of the year. Americans pulled back spending across the board in June. Sales dropped at gas stations, which we just mentioned, grocery stores, department stores, restaurants, and bars. Well, it does seem pretty much across the board, doesn't it? At the same time, Americans' confidence in the economy's future is cooling. After spiking following President Trump's election. Well, yeah, there we go. We were talking about that early on. You're putting your faith into the politics, into the talking heads. We're going to make everything better. When these things are completely out of any office holder's control. Let's get real. Americans were very optimistic in January that Trump would soon cut taxes. But tax reform continues to be pushed back, and hopes of it getting done are dimming because confidence falls. Experts say weak retail sales aren't a sign that a recession is around the corner. What the hell? Job growth is still strong, unemployment is low, and wages are growing. I want to know what kind of drugs those dudes are on. Those experts say. I want to know what kind of drugs they're on because, man, there is a market for that shit. I just go take a pause and just absorb that. Absorb that while I drop the links into the chat room. For those folks who did bother to join the chat room, yeah, I'm picking on you, are able to read on their own. Whoa, let's get down to our favorite whipping boy. Monsanto. Yes, how about Monsanto? What's Monsanto up to? According to a website known as expandyourconsciousness.com, Monsanto isn't feeding the world, it's killing our children. Now, many of you out there who know my views on all this will not be surprised that I find this a very informative post. In fact, they actually go on to say, Monsanto wants you dead. 2 groundbreaking reports came out this year that show there's ample evidence agricultural pesticides and herbicides and other toxic chemicals are poisoning and killing us. They also accuse U.S. and international agencies of colluding with chemical companies to bury the truth while making billions in profits at the expense of our health. Do you think so? A gentleman named E.G. Valianatos, who worked for the EPA for 25 years, wrote this: "It's simply not possible to understand why the EPA behaves the way it does without appreciating the enormous power of Americans' industrial farmers and their allies in the chemical pesticide industries, which currently do about $40 billion per year in business. For decades, industry lobbyists have preached the gospel of unregulated capitalism, and Americans have bought it. Today, it seems the entire government is at the service of the private interests of America's corporate class." Now, reiterate, that's a gentleman who spent 25 years with the EPA. And the name of the book, which you'll get in the chat, but I'll go ahead and tell you, is Poison Spring, The Secret History of Pollution in the EPA. And that book published in 2014 might be an interesting read. At the same time, you have a report from the Special Rapporteur presented to the United Nations Human Rights Council. But at any rate, they focused on agricultural chemicals and clearly state that companies like Monsanto are lying when they sell us a story that pesticides and herbicides are necessary to feed the world. To quote the report, it says, "It is a myth. Using more pesticides has nothing to do with getting rid of hunger. According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, we are able to feed 9 billion people today. Production is definitely increasing, but the problem is poverty, inequality, and distribution." I would say emphasis on the last, distribution. When you really seriously consider the fact that such a huge amount of food is thrown away every single day. Why is that? Well, yes, we worry about the health and well-being of all the people, don't we? But we also worry about maintaining production, keeping the wheels turning, a little bit like programmed obsolescence in a sense. Because if we have too much food available, that means the production is going to have to cut back some, or, as is the case many times, government subsidies will have to be applied to offset the losses of these corporate operations because there's no market for the product. Think about that. Of course, not so secondary here. The report also says that chronic exposure to pesticides has been linked to cancer, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, hormone disruption, developmental disorders, and sterility. Oh, really? That's just a coincidence, don't you think? According to the World Health Organization's report that assessed a number of environmental risks, our polluted environment adds to the deaths of 1.7 million children every year. Oh, that's just a coincidence. It has nothing to do with some long-term agenda of global population control, does it? Nah, that's too tinfoil hatty. Nah, we'd have to, ignore the man behind the curtain. Also, WHO's press release said that children are exposed to harmful chemicals through food, water, air, and products around them. Chemicals such as fluoride, lead, and mercury pesticides, persistent organic pollutants, and others in manufactured goods eventually find their way into the food chain. Yep, you're right, sock puppet. Pretentious care of others is no excuse for paying government to impose your will. But you see, that's how it's sold. And every talking head media site that people sit back and in their lazy chairs and lazy boys, and have beaten into their heads. Who's going to build the roads? Who's going to take care of the children? The government has to step up. Really. Anyway, some of the remedies that expanderconsciousness.com suggests, that it's time to end corporate greed. Well, you think? And control of our regulatory system and elect new people. Oh, here we go. We're taking the statist approach. Check it out. It's right here. Elect new people at every level of government who works for us. Good article. I think you're missing I think you might be missing the bigger picture. But that's okay. We'll just go right on with it here. Let's drop that next time before I lose track of what I've dropped and what I haven't. Let's just go ahead and drop that in. Bam. Okay. Now, not to be outdone, Fox4KC.com, Kansas City. Woman exposed to weed killer chemical, now battling cancer. Vows to fight Monsanto to her last breath. I noticed that they did, in fact, in their headline, use the word Monsanto, but they did not use the word Roundup. Just a curious observation that you would think that in a lead line you would actually name the chemical, but they managed not to do that. And it goes on to say, Roundup is a weed killer that was heralded as something of a miracle after it was created 30 years ago. Think about that, 30 years. Because it saved farmers from the time-consuming, backbreaking work of clearing weeds from their fields. However, now, 30 years later, I might add, scientific studies show it could be giving us cancer. The victim, in this case, said, the label said it was okay, so you just use it. Francine Lyle, who has chronic lymphoma leukemia, is now among the more than 800 people suing Roundup's maker, Monsanto. Lyle, who recently moved from the Kansas City metro to Oklahoma, said she was diagnosed in March 2015 after her regular doctor noticed she had an elevated white blood cell count. With no history of chronic lymphoma, leukemia in her family, Lyle started searching for answers. That's how she learned about glyphosate, a key ingredient in Roundup and other weed killers that has been linked to cancer. She says that, I grew up in a farming community. I worked in a plant in West Virginia that produced the chemicals for Roundup for Monsanto, and I used Roundup. We all did down there. In 2015, the World Health Organization listed glyphosate as a chemical that probably causes cancer. This month, California added glyphosate to a list of potentially cancer-causing chemicals that are required to provide a warning to the public. And of course, Monsanto denies that glyphosate is causing cancer, just like the tobacco industry denied that smoking caused cancer. And of course, Monsanto's websites also provide links to multiple other statements from scientists who have questioned the validity of the research linking glyphosate to cancer. Now, for those of you who were around at the time, how similar does this sound to the tobacco science? And, if you sit there and say, well, they couldn't lie to you, well, think again. Go back and look at the tobacco science, and you'll see that they'll lie to you. And when, the reality is they don't really care, because they know that the worst case scenario is that they could be hit with a big fine, which is just chump change to these psychopaths. And so, what's your remedy? Is there one? Well, yeah, you don't buy the crap. That's probably, but then that is kind of a limited remedy too, because of all the people around you who do use it. Lyle said she doesn't even know if she'll be alive if and when her lawsuit against Monsanto finally makes it to court. But she said it doesn't matter because she didn't sign on to make money. She wanted to make a point about a product that she believes no one should be using. So much for remedies, right? And of course, continuing to beat the drum on glyphosate and other things. Healthy Holistic Living posted an article that the top 5 pesticide-soaked fruits and vegetables that you should avoid at all costs. And they actually name the top 5 that are just completely While mainstream media sources often seem to downplay the importance of eating organic, more and more people continue to choose it as an alternative to conventional food laced with synthetic pesticides. Many people are familiar with the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, and that's another link that's in this article, and I don't think we've talked about this in the past, so it might be worthwhile to click on that link and find out. They're obviously talking about the 12 of the worst and the 15 of the best, so you might be able to use that as some sort of reference. From the Environmental Working Group, a list that highlights the most important fruits and vegetables to buy organic in order to maximize your dollars. Let me be clear about this organic word. I personally prefer the term non-GMO. Organic is a little bit of a loaded word because that is one of those USDA words that means that 95% of the product is organic. That means there can be a 5% dilution or contamination and still be considered organic. That's something just to keep in mind. Despite the growing awareness of all these lists and all this information, it's important to realize just how contaminated many of the most popular fruits and vegetables in the United States really are. The amount of pesticides on these 5 most polluted types of produce is quite staggering, especially when taking into consideration that so many healthy eating programs still recommend them or pass them out at health events and omit any mention of the high levels of toxic pesticides they contain. And as an aside from that, let's consider the public schools. Let's consider the food that is prepared on a daily basis to the young ones in the public schools. What's the source of this, and what is the likelihood that they are receiving low bid USDA foods that are just chock full of pesticides and herbicides? I'd say the odds are pretty doggone high. Just something to think about. 4 fruits and vegetables have actually been found to have more than 45 different pesticide residues over large samples taken by the USDA. Please keep in mind, the next time you reach for another healthy snack to give your kids in the produce aisle. With such a striking level of pesticides in each of these conventional produce items, it would be wise to avoid them entirely, such as Strawberries. Topping the list for the first time are strawberries, which may seem healthy at first glance, but can be loaded with synthetic toxic pesticides, according to EWG's research. Pesticides with negative effects on the brain and nervous system have been found in spades on strawberries, with 45 total pesticide residues found by USDA Pesticide Data Program in 2009. So, talk about old news, right? 8 years ago. So that means 8 years worth of imbibing poisonous strawberries. Talk about delayed notice, huh? Apples. I think a lot of us knew that, but we'll go over it. Perhaps the most notable inclusion on this list is the apple, considering its reputation as a health food and lack of organic apple orchards. For that matter, the vast majority of apple orchards remain conventional. Yet, American apples were banned in Europe by their regulators. How many people knew that? Nectarines. Similar to peaches with their soft round shape and orange color, nectarines soak up pesticides like a sponge, making it important to always buy them organic, or at least to limit consumption. According to the EWG report from 2012, 5 years ago, nectarines actually had the most overall weight of pesticides of any fruit or vegetable, meaning that you're probably consuming these dangerous carcinogens in every bite and taxing the health of your liver. Number 4, peaches. The soft skin of peaches combined with a number of chemicals they're treated with could spell serious trouble for your health. In 2008, 9 years ago, a study by the PDP, and I'm not sure who that is. It probably referenced it above and I missed it. The PDP found that 62 different pesticide residues on conventional peaches. Several are considered as neurotoxins and known carcinogens. While you can wash some of the residue off, much of it remains in the soft flesh and skin of the peach. Particularly notable to those in the Carolinas. Especially South Carolina, the big peach-producing state. And number 5. According to USDA data, non-organic celery may contain as many as 64 different pesticide residues, including as many as 16 that are considered toxic to honeybees. Anyway, I'm going to leave that right where it is. I mean, there again, if you don't think there's an overriding agenda to kill you and to profit from it at the same time, then you are seriously in the market for one of my bridges. So, what do? We've talked about fluoride. Okay, now fluoride, for many, and still unfortunately too many, is a significant threat in their water supplies. Their municipal is the word I'm looking for. Municipal water supplies, because not enough people have gotten up and taken evidence down there that we talked about a week or two ago, and confronted the council on why are you poisoning us with this, and please answer the question. Okay? How many people have done that? Don't know. But anyway, Health Nut News talks about 6 ways to detox fluoride and how to get it out of your body. July 17th, 2017, sodium fluoride is classified as a neurotoxin. Did you know that? It's in the same category as arsenic, lead, and mercury, but is still prevalent in the United States water supply. And here are 6 ways to detox it. Okay, where are the ways? Number 1, get adequate iodine. Now, why does that sound like the same approach you would take for a potential radiation poisoning? That's interesting. Iodine, an important element for your normal metabolism, especially the thyroid hormones. It pushes the fluoride from your body via urine. Some good sources of iodine include seaweed, cranberries, organic yogurt, potatoes, organic strawberries, and organic navy beans. So increase the iodine in your body's probably not a bad idea anyway. Consume more boron. Boron's a natural element that helps flush fluoride from your body. Boron-rich foods include most nuts, dates, prunes, honey, broccoli, bananas, and avocado. Eat some tamarind. This African fruit and spice is used exclusively in Ayurvedic medicine. It can be used in a tincture or tea to cleanse the body of fluoride. Increase magnesium, calcium intake. And this is probably a good idea too, because most people are deficient in magnesium because soils have been depleted of this mineral through modern agricultural methods. An accident? It plays an important role, however, in the metabolism and synthesis of nutrients within your cells. It also inhibits the absorption of fluoride into your cells. Along with magnesium, calcium seems to help attract fluoride away from bones and teeth, allowing the body to eliminate it. They should both be taken together, and this can easily be accomplished by consuming dark leafy greens, nuts, seeds, fish, beans, whole grains, avocados, organic yogurt, bananas, dried fruit, and dark chocolate. General liver cleanse. The most important step to detoxify from excess fluoride may be to cleanse your liver. The liver is responsible for over 400 functions in the body. When it gets overburdened, a number of symptoms may manifest. Because fluoride isn't a product that's found naturally in the body, some sources claim that it may get stuck in the liver. If you drink lemon water upon rising and eat liver-friendly foods such as garlic, turmeric, lemons, limes, and avocado, your body will have an easier time removing heavy metals. Here's one that sounds fun. Sit in a sauna. Saunas are great for ridding your body of toxins, as they inspire the body to sweat them out. The penetrating heat feels good, too. Just be sure to drink plenty of water so you don't dry up and fall over. And if you have any medical conditions, consult your healthcare provider first. Okay, and additionally to all that, adopt a wholesome plant-based diet, get plenty of exercise, receive 15 to 20 minutes of sunlight per day, be positive in your thoughts. Well, I say that sounds rather hypocritical coming from a show like this. And take time off to keep your stress levels in check. And you'll find that overall you'll feel better and have more energy. It'll also help throw off the fluoride. So anyway, yeah, I did say easily, Vinny. Well, you know, you come up in these programs far too often. Okay, getting close to the midnight hour here, I guess you could say. Where are we going to go? Let's see. Where are we going to go? Oh shit! I just deleted one. Oh well, didn't mean to do that. I like this story. Let me see. I like to end up with something that's really kind of interesting to me. I think they've solved the problem here in this national park, in the Kaziranga National Park, which has been subject to a lot of poaching, like a lot of the African parks have been. You know, rhinos are poached almost to extinction. But this park has come up with a very interesting and effective remedy, it seems. To protect the rhinos, this park just shoots people. They've killed 50 poachers so far. They don't play around there, buddy. Kaziranga National Park is a story of success when it comes to conservation of rhinos, but what they've done to achieve it is allowing its workers to shoot and even kill potential poachers. Rhinos are safe there. A century ago, there was only a handful of Indian one-horned rhinos. I'm sorry, this is in India. My mistake. Now the park hosts more than 2,400, which is 2/3 of the world's population. However, little is talked about the fact that in 2015, more people were shot dead by guards than a number of rhinos killed by poachers. And they're actually, in a sense, the tone of this article seems to be somewhat questioning about the wisdom of executing poachers, I guess you could say. Personally, I think it's a great idea. And obviously, it works. These people all went after rhino horn, as they could be sold for as much as $6,000 for 100 grams, and are considerably more expensive than gold. They are the most marketed as a miracle cure for everything from cancer to erectile dysfunction. So yes, rhinos need protection. But they ask the question, has this gone too far? My answer is no, it has not. National park workers can kill a person and get away with it with impunity. The question is, could this kind of punishment ever be justified? And how many innocent people were... Well, yes, and who will build the roads and who will protect the children? Obviously, my friend, Elizabeth at Bored Panda, obviously, my friend, they have hit upon a remedy that works. So the moral of the story is, don't go to Kaziranga National Park even looking like you might be a poacher, and your problem will be solved. I thought that was an excellent article. I guess it is a valid question to ask if that's an okay thing to do. My opinion is it's more than adequate because it works. All right, let's close up with a funny story. I got 2 minutes left. I think we can go through here. I'm just going to read this whole thing because it was so beautifully written, okay? The two young brothers in Putnam County, West Virginia, were never taught how to drive, not intentionally at least. But the boys ages 5 and 2 had played their share of driving video games. They'd been watching their mom drive, and they knew she kept an extra set of keys under the floor mat of her 2005 Ford Focus. So when the brothers wanted to visit the animals on their grandfather's farm about 7 miles away, they hatched a plan to trek on their own. While the mom thought they were playing in the front yard, her sons were actually taking a joyride down a winding road. It took a team effort for the brothers to accomplish the kind of rebellious stunt that is usually attempted by kids of at least 10 years their senior. The older boy was able to stretch to reach the brake and gas pedals, while the 2-year-old brother helped steer. With no other cars on the road, they were miraculously able to make it 3 miles from home. And they weren't lost on some random street. They knew exactly where their grandfather's house was and were almost halfway there before their trip came to an abrupt end. The boys navigated the twists in the road, an intersection, and a right turn before running off the road and into an embankment. Both boys, who were taken to a hospital as a precaution, were left unscathed. The Ford Focus, on the other hand, took a hit to some paneling and the front wheel on his right-hand side. Since they crashed in a residential area where homeowners saw the accident and called the police. And I'm not going to go into the rest of it because I think it just goes nuts, because they start talking about child protective services and why was the mother not watching these children out in the country as they play out in the yard. Give me a break. But anyway, thought that was a fun story to end up with tonight. It's always amazing to me, these crazy things that we come up with. So anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Sorry Brenda didn't make it in. But we'll catch up with you next time, hopefully, on The Road Less Traveled. Gary L., Gigi's Boo, RealLibertyMedia.com, RLM.com. have a good week. And we'll catch up with you. Good night.